What's up, pod people, and welcome to the Wheel of Time Pod-Thru. I'm Teresa.
And I'm Tim.
And together, we're going to walk through Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time book series. How you doing, Tim?
I'm doing great. We are back.
We're back from our vacation. We didn't drown. Yay!
Yay! Wait, that was a possibility?
No.
Oh, okay.
More like we get buried under an avalanche from the buffet table.
True. Very true.
Anyway, before we get started, we just want to remind you that this is a reread. We assume that you've read the entire series, so there will be spoilers. You have been warned. All right, Tim, what are we going to be doing in today's episode?
Today we'll be discussing chapters 14 and 15 of the Dragon Reborn, where Siuan recruits the girls into a dangerous mission, and then they are attacked within the tower itself.
Dun, dun, dun.
Chapter 14 is called The Bite of Thorns, and the icon is the two faces.
Is that what we call that icon? Is it two faces? Is it silhouettes? Like,
People in the community call it different things.
I like two faces because it's like a play on being two-faced.
Exactly.
And Aes Sedai, shadowy Aes Sedai, I don't know.
Well, and especially the Black Ash, but yeah.
Yeah. Anywho, here's a quick summary to act as a reminder for those of you who are not reading along with us. Egwene and Nynaeve wait to see if they will be punished further, while Siuan muses to herself and confuses them with talk of gossip, trust, and getting fish. She tests their emotional control with some nasty insinuations, and when they pass, she tells them that they are the only two in the tower she can absolutely trust are not Black Aja. Liandrin left with her 12, but they can't be sure that they didn't leave any behind, and Siuan is determined to hunt the Black Aja down and still them all. She wants to make Egwene and Nynaeve her hounds. Of course, both girls object immediately because they're not stupid. Nynaeve points out that Eggs hasn't even been raised to accept it yet, and she can't channel at all unless she's angry. They'd be no match for 13 trained sisters. Siuan admits the truth of that statement, but they are all she has. Egwene tells her that she's too busy with her studies and chores to hunt the Black Aja because Egwene is not good at thinking on her feet. Siuan tells her to find the time because that's a lame excuse. Nynaeve wants to know why Elaine isn't part of this conversation, and Siuan tells her that she's the daughter heir of Andor, dumbass. She has enough problems with Morghese as it is. The girls snark at each other a little because that's what they do in this book, and then agree to hunt the Black Aja for Siuan. She decides that they can trust Varen and tells them that Varen will give them all the info they have on the Black Sisters. She will check on them periodically, and they can give the reports on their findings then. Nynaeve points out that they are just accepted and limited by a lot of rules. Siuan tells her that for the most part, they'll have to work within those limitations, but for emergencies, she gives them each a letter that says, "What the bearer does is done at my order and by my authority. Obey and keep silent at my command." Signed by the Amyrlin seat. The girls marvel at what those letters could let them get away with, and Siuan warns them not to push it, and that a dark friend or a white cloak would just as soon kill them for having it. Before they leave, Nynaeve asks about Matt, and Siuan deflects, saying that she'll send word to them. When Nynaeve tries to push her, she kicks them out of her study, telling them that the hope of the tower rests with them, and reminding them that they still have their appointments with Sheriam and with the Dirty Pots.
So Nynaeve and Egwene are kind of watching Siuan vent all her frustrations about what is going on and feeling a little bit uneasy at how she's kind of letting some cracks show in her armor.
Yeah.
We find out that Siuan has been able to keep the truth from getting out, so very few people know the Black Aja is real. It's a really great way to do exposition, because we the readers see through Egwene's eyes. Her nervousness transfers to us, and we feel suspense instead of getting bored.
Yeah. I think Egwene gets her first real lesson in leadership here.
Yeah.
Quote, "To see the Amyrlin look uncertain made Egwene's stomach clench. The Amyrlin seat was always sure, always serenely centered on her path. The Amyrlin was strength personified. For all her own raw power, the woman on the other side of the table had the knowledge and experience to wind her around a spindle. To see her suddenly wavering, like a girl who knew she had to dive headfirst into a pond without any idea of how deep it was, or whether there were rocks or mud on the bottom. To see that chilled Egwene right to her core." End quote. Egwene is used to thinking of the Amyrlin seat and everything that comes with that title. It's easy to forget that there is a woman behind that position. Just a regular woman who has the same feelings and passions and doubts that any other woman has.
True.
Siuan has trained herself to always present a confident front. But this is the first time it occurs to Egwene that the Amyrlin is not infallible. Later, when she becomes Amyrlin, she'll have to learn to keep that strong public face up, even when she's bluffing, because a leader can't afford to let those under her see her sweat.
Right. You're right. It's a really important lesson for her to see.
Mm-hmm. Like, I'm thinking specifically of when she has a meeting with the Borderland armies.
Yes.
She's bluffing 100% of the time.
She has no cards in her
But
hand.
she does it beautifully.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, Siuan is the one that teaches her how to do that.
Exactly.
And I don't know. I think this is her first
Yeah.
lesson in being an Amyrlin.
Oh, yeah. It starts here. Yeah. I find the difference in how Egwene reacts to Siuan and Nynaeve reacts to Siuan very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Egwene kind of stays internal and starts to worry about if the Amyrlin knows about Rand, while Nynaeve basically comes off as, what are you babbling on about? Nynaeve does not have time for this nonsense. Matt is sick, she has punishment to endure, and basically has better things to do with her time. And when Siuan muses about being able to trust Moraine, Nynaeve answers the question with her opinion because she wants to move this along. I just love how she really does not care about how she is perceived by the most powerful woman in the world.
That's our girl.
Yep.
So the 4 women Siuan mentions are Leanne, Sheriam, Varen, and Moraine.
Yeah.
2 of them turn out to be Black Aja, though Varen is more purple than black. Siuan is scraping the bottom of the barrel and still coming up lacking.
Yeah, she really is. Sucks to be her. Mm-hmm. Siuan is the master manipulator. She pushes all Nynaeve's buttons and plays her like a fiddle. I think Siuan's goal was to make Nynaeve think about what it would be like to be an Aes Sedai. Nynaeve is so resistant to the idea that I don't think she really ever considered that she is capable of gaining the shawl. I think this is the first time she realizes that, and that is going to happen. What do you think?
I think Siuan really needed to see if Nynaeve was capable of controlling her anger. She's absolutely right that Nynaeve can't go flying off the handle all the time and still be effective.
True.
Like, she doesn't have to suppress her anger, and she never learns Aes Sedai calm.
No.
But she has to be able to control herself through her anger, or the world's going to eat her alive.
That's true.
But I definitely agree that Nynaeve never considered that she would actually become Aes Sedai. You know, like, she wanted to be trained in the power so she could get back at Moraine.
Yep.
And then she grows a real passion for learning all she can about healing.
Mm-hmm.
But it takes her a long time to come around to the idea of actually gaining the shawl.
Yeah.
But to be honest, Siuan wanting to raise Nynaeve at this point makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah, it's
Like,
yeah.
I mean, she'd only trained in the tower for 4 months before allowing herself to fall into an obvious dark friend trap.
True.
She has no emotional control, and she can't channel unless she's furious. She probably hasn't even heard of the 100 Weaves yet, let alone learned them.
True.
I mean, it's a throwaway, so ultimately it doesn't matter. But frankly, I think this was a misstep on Jordan's part. Because it doesn't make sense.
You don't think it was just there to kind of get the spark going in her mind to one day this is going to be you? Because she hasn't really thought that at all yet.
I mean, that's the outcome of it. And okay, sure, fine. But he could have done that in a way that uses logic.
Yeah.
Like, this makes no logical sense. Siuan, of all people, would never be suggesting that Nynaeve test for the shawl right now. There's no way. Like,
You're right.
It doesn't make any sense. There's a way to get there that doesn't fly in the face of logic and who your character is. You know what I mean?
And a thing I find lately I have to be really careful of is because I know how the story ends, I can't go back and shoehorn ideas in because I know it'll. I can't,
absolutely.
Post hoc ergo propter hoc. Just because I know how it ends doesn't mean that my justification is the way it actually is.
Yeah,
Got it.
absolutely. I don't know. I think that was not the best decision on Jordan's part.
Okay.
again, ultimately, it doesn't matter. It's just a throwaway, but it doesn't make any sense.
Well, thanks for walking me through that. On the one hand, Siuan admits that Egwene and Nynaeve are both already more powerful in the power than Liandrin and her Black Aja cronies. On the other hand, she also admits that they aren't trained and this is a crap solution, but there's no other choice.
Yeah.
Jordan does a good job of making you feel the desperation of the situation because, at least through Egwene's perspective, there's no other way this will work. I'm still not sure if this was the only solution Siuan had at her disposal, but I accept that this is how the situation had to unfold because of the way it's presented.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel torn. On one hand, it's almost criminal to send these untrained girls after known murderers.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
I mean, they really are lambs to slaughter, and Siuan should never have given them this assignment. She's responsible for them, and this was wrong. But she is right that she doesn't know who else to trust. Anyone could be a Black sister. She has to question if she can trust even those closest to her. So she's not wrong when she says that the girls are all she has. I think maybe she's better able to justify her behavior because she and Moraine were conscripted into a similar situation when they were young by their Amyrlin.
True.
But at least in their case, they were about to be raised to the shawl. They
Yeah.
weren't babies like Eggs and Nynaeve, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's morally objectionable, but it's great storytelling.
Absolutely.
Can we talk a minute about the two reactions we get here? So Nynaeve is like, but we're going to die. And Egwene is like, but I've got too much homework. Like, seriously? I'm with Nynaeve. Egwene is barely old enough to be called a woman.
Yeah. Well, she's only been she's only had, well, no, I guess it's been a year, maybe a year.
Yeah,
since
they've been out of their village for a year. They haven't been trained for a year. But when Moraine went to fetch them from their village, it was about a year. So she's seen some things, but just the difference in reactions between Egwene and Nynaeve throughout this entire chapter and the next chapter,
True.
It's very obvious that Egwene is still very young. She's stressing about being punished, and she's stressing about not being able to learn and how much she has on her plate. And then in the next chapter, when they get attacked, she's panicking. Like, she can barely touch the source.
Yep.
When she finally does, it winks out really quickly. She's not able to really assess the situation because she's panicked. And Nynaeve is like, holy crap, pushes Egwene down to the ground to protect her. She thinks quickly and like immobilizes the guy. Like, she's able to touch the source no problem because she's furious.
Yep.
So her anger supersedes her fear, which is important. You know, like she has fear in her, but she's able to push it aside to get stuff done because that's what's necessary. So I feel like these two chapters, even though Egwene is going on and on and on about I'm not a child anymore, I'm a woman, treat me like a woman, her behavior, her reactions show just how young she really is. Like,
Yeah.
Nynaeve is only 25, 26?
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's like somewhere 5 to 7 year difference. I can't remember how old Egwene is. I think she's 18. That's like a 7 year difference.
Yeah.
Which later in life isn't that big of a deal, but at this age,
Right.
that's huge. Like, developmentally,
Yeah.
those years are important.
Well, and biologically, I mean, like,
Yeah.
like what happens to the brain between the age of 21 and 25 is huge.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, as much as this book in general, from both Egwene and Perrin's perspective, are about standing on your own 2 feet and becoming an adult and like breaking off all of the authority over you and all that kind of stuff,
Yep.
being a surly teenager. Like, as much as this book in particular is about that, it's a major theme. Egwene really is young here.
Yeah.
And it shows.
And it's probably a good time to kind of point out that we're harsh on her. Probably
Yeah.
we're harsh on her, and it's probably because we're just really annoyed that developmentally she's not there yet.
I know. It's one of those things, like, I think the reason for example, I hate Matt so much in the first 2 books.
Oh, yeah.
Is because I know how awesome he is.
True.
Like starting in this book and going forward. So having to suffer through crappy Matt is painful. And I think it's the same thing with Egwene. She does get better at the end of the series. Like those last few books especially, she's amazing. But she's the worst right now.
Yeah.
So having to suffer through bratty, self-centered, crappy Egwene is just painful. And she's never one of my favorite characters, even when she does get better. So there's not enough of a redemption for me to be able to suffer through it in good grace. You know what I mean?
Good grace. That's the phrase we'll use. We're not good grace. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
We're going to have to get used to Egwene and Nynaeve fighting about how Egwene has grown up.
Yeah.
And doesn't want to be treated like a child. Because Jordan really belabors the point. And here is the big difference between Nynaeve and Egwene as people. Nynaeve can see when she is wrong. And when she does this, immediately starts to take steps to change her behavior. Egwene only does this when she is forced to do so. After Egwene calls her out, Nynaeve corrects herself and calls her a woman instead of a girl, essentially ending the fight before it can pick up any more steam.
Yeah. Yeah. So they get their skeleton key letters, and Nynaeve talks about making a water dance. And I love the warning Siuan gives them. Quote, "If that paper is a shield, well, paper shields are flimsy, and this one may have a target painted on it." They don't get nearly as much mileage out of those letters as they had hoped.
True.
Which is good, because as far as, like, plot convenience, it's a little too convenient. But, I do like her first instinct is, I can make a water dance. I wonder what water in particular.
There is no particular one in front of her mind. Nope, not at all. And right at the end of this chapter, we get a reminder that Matt is still sick and still may die, and we're not going to do anything about it yet.
Yeah, we still have to wait.
More reasons not to trust Aes Sedai. That wraps up chapter 14. But before we get to chapter 15, here's a quick word from our sponsors.
Today's episode of the Wheel of Time Pod-Thru is brought to you by the Order of the Fishes, a secret society of witches and wizards, channelers, who hunt down and fight Death Eaters, Dark Friends, in order to stop the Dark Lord. The Dark One. Egwene Alvear and the Order of the Fishes. You know what? Never mind.
Chapter 15 is called The Gray Man, and the icon is still the two faces.
Egwene and Nynaeve head back to the novice chambers, and Egwene tells Nynaeve she hopes she wasn't serious about trying to live by the 3 oaths. She's not going to let any dark friend attack her without fighting back. Nynaeve tells her that the Black Aja sees them as a threat and will probably try to get rid of them, but she meant every word she told the Amyrlin. There are ways Aes Sedai defend themselves. They just have to figure out what they are. Egwene counters that they already know several ways, but Nynaeve warns that it's dangerous to lash out with a power like they did with the White Cloaks. You could grow to like it too much. Egwene asks since when does she care about rules or limits, and Nynaeve says, what good will it do anyone to be put out of the tower? She has to stay if she's going to learn enough. Egwene is wildly curious what the specific reason is that Nynaeve wants to stay and be trained, but Nynaeve asks her to be quiet and let her think. They get to Elaine's room first, but find it empty. Nynaeve says she wants to talk to them both. Egwene pulls her to an abrupt halt to get some answers, and something whizzes past her face and clings into the wall. Nynaeve pulls her to the ground, and they see a crossbow bolt. Egwene feels blood where it nicked her ear. If she hadn't stopped so abruptly, the bolt would have gone through her head. Egwene has a hard time embracing Saidar in her shaken state, but luckily Nynaeve is furious. She wraps the man in air, immobilizing him, and they go to investigate. They find an average-looking man in plain brown clothes suspended as if in the middle of running away, the hilt of a dagger protruding from the man's chest. He crumbled to the floor when Nynaeve lets go of the weave. Panicked, Egwene says that there has to be another one because the man had no crossbow, and someone had to have stabbed him. She tries to grasp the source, but she's too scared to touch it. Nynaeve tells her to calm down and they'll figure out what to do, but they're interrupted by Sharam. Nynaeve says that they found the man there. Sheriam tells them that he's one of the Soulless, a gray man, who has given up his soul to be one of the Dark One's assassins. After that, they're not quite dead, but not truly alive. You can look right at them and never see them until it's too late. Sheriam tells them not to speak to anyone about this except her or the Amerlin. She tells them to go to Nynaeve's room. With all the trouble they're already in, they can't afford to be associated with anything like this. Egwene gets up to go, but Nynaeve asks Sheriam why she came down to the novice quarters in the first place. Sheriam firmly tells her that the mistress of novices doesn't need an excuse to go to the novices' quarters, and accepted don't get to question Aes Sedai. She orders them to go before she hauls them into her study. Egwene says she needs to grab her cloak and darts towards her room to grab the crossbow bolt before Sheriam can see it and ask unwanted questions. But the bolt is gone. Eggs grabs her cloak and races back to the others. She can tell something more went down between Nynaeve and Sheriam in her absence. As they head to Nynaeve's room, she asks if Nynaeve is trying to make more trouble for them by making Sheriam so mad. Nynaeve responds that they have to ask questions if they're going to root out the Black Aja. Egwene tells her the crossbow bolt was gone, and Nynaeve remarks that one thing Sheriam did not do is wonder who stabbed the gray man.
I laugh when Egwene says, quote, "Nobody is threatened by someone they can order about. Nobody is threatened by someone who has to scrub pots and turn spits 3 times a day." Just wait, because many books from now, Elida will definitely be feeling threatened despite Egwene doing these things in the future. And I'm really looking forward to see that part of her journey.
For sure. I think what Nynaeve says about using the power as a weapon being too dangerous because they could grow to like it too much is a good point. It would be too tempting to allow themselves to go from protecting themselves to punishing the guilty. And once they cross that line, it's a slippery slope to domination.
Yeah.
Egwene doesn't really understand here, but Nynaeve is right. Like when they're attacked, Egwene's first instinct is to lightning the person in smithereens.
Right.
Like her first instinct is
Overkill.
weapon. Like,
Yeah.
to kill him, basically. And that's not what they're supposed to be doing. I mean, it's one of the core tenets of being an Aes Sedai is that they don't use it as a weapon.
Correct.
So it's a really important distinction, but it makes a big difference, you know? Can I just say how funny it is that Nynaeve admonishes Egwene for her language after she's almost killed? It's like, come on, Nynaeve. If there ever was a time to say blood and bloody ashes, it's now.
Right? Oh, gosh. Nynaeve only has to see something done once before she can do it too.
Yeah.
When she wraps the gray man in air, it's the weave that Siuan used against her on the boat in the Great Hunt. She even uses the same words Siuan lectured her with when she did it. It's a great callback.
Yeah, absolutely. The gray man has been stabbed, and the girls reason that there has to be another one somewhere.
Right.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they're right here.
I think so.
Like, we know that there is a second gray man in the tower. Because
Exactly.
later in this book, Sheriam finds one dead in her bed.
Mm-hmm.
So the second gray man stabbed this one, took the crossbow, and then went to retrieve the bolt while they were all examining the body. Is that right?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. So Sheriam, mistress of convenient timing, shows up on the scene. Knowing how things shake out and that Sheriam turns out to be Black Aja makes this chapter read completely differently.
True.
I believe the theory is that Sheriam was supposed to discover the girl's dead body after the gray man killed them, which is why she came by immediately after the attack. There's a problem with that theory, though.
Yeah.
How would Sheriam know the timing of when to discover the bodies? She had no way of knowing how long the Amerlin would be talking to the girls, and they came straight here from her study. The gray man could have been staking out Egwene's room for whenever she returned, but how would Sheriam know when the attack was?
I don't know.
Like, Nynaeve questions what she's doing in the novice quarters, but she could have had a legitimate reason to be there, which sort of makes more sense when you consider how close the timing was.
Yeah, like during this reread, the exchange where Nynaeve points out to Egwene that Sheriam didn't ask about who stabbed the gray man made me think about the Sharon Retcon theory. Like, everything you just talked about is true. Like, I still think the decision was made to make her dark friend later. But I can see how people would say that this is an indication that she was the Black Oj from the beginning.
Yeah, like, I definitely get it. Sharon acts pretty shady in this chapter.
She does.
And there's a lot of suspicion on her. But the same could be said about both Varen and Alana in later chapters.
Yep.
And neither of them are evil. Like, Jordan has painstakingly laid out that the girls can't trust anyone. So he makes several of the sisters act strangely or suspiciously to drive that point home. Knowing that Sheriam is Black Aja, we can assign meaning to the events that happened, like you were talking about earlier. Like, once you know how things play out, it's easy to, like, go back and
see it through that lens.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know. I mean, I think that Jordan left things pretty open to interpretation. If Sheriam had not turned out to be black, her behavior could have just as easily been explained in a different way.
Yes.
Of course she didn't theorize who killed the gray man to Nynaeve and Egwene. In the eyes of an Aes Sedai, they're both children. Like, she wouldn't want to encourage them to try to puzzle out the mystery themselves or put themselves in danger trying to play detective. It would be inappropriate to muse things out with them.
Yes.
I know that some people get riled up when I say making Sheriam a black sister was a retcon. They point specifically to this chapter and to the gray man in her bed later on. And yes, her being Black Aja does explain these things. But it's not the only explanation.
True.
Jordan was purposely trying to cast suspicion on everybody to keep us just as confused as who to trust as the girls were. It's great writing. But I'm not convinced that he knew at this point that Sheriam was Black Aja for sure. I think he left his options open for Sheriam, Alana, Elida, and Varen. They all could have gone either way based on the stuff that happens in the next couple books. And I think he made those decisions later.
Yeah, and there are a lot of books left in the series, so he obviously had a lot more to plot out.
Yeah, like, I definitely think at this point he knew there was a possibility that any of them would be black.
True.
I don't think he had decided which one. Like, he knew some of them were going to be black, but I don't think he knew which ones at this point, which is why he left everything so open-ended.
With the exception of maybe Varen. But
maybe.
But even then, it's like, was she wasn't really Black Oj anyway.
Yeah, like, I mean, I don't know about Varen, how early he knew Varen was a mole. But the point is, like, I understand that that Sheriam's behavior can be explained by her being Black Aja. And I'm not arguing that she's not Black Aja.
Okay.
Like, I accept she's Black Aja. Absolutely. Yes. Decision accepted. Understand. What I'm saying is, what happens in this chapter isn't proof.
True.
What happens in this chapter does not, like, prove that Jordan knew way back from the beginning that she was Black Aja. He left it open-ended. Did he know? Maybe. But I just don't think so. I think he knew there was a possibility, but I don't think he made that decision until later books.
Yeah.
By the time she gets to Saladar, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely, he knew she was Black Aja when she's in Saladar. But here, in the Dragon Reborn, and before,
Maybe
not necessarily. Like, I'm just not convinced. And you know what? That's okay. I'm allowed to think that. And if you disagree, you're allowed to think that too. You know, that's why we do podcasts like this, because it's fun to talk and theorize and debate.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I don't think that he knew. I really don't. Not until later.
I'm with you there.
Anyway, I think it takes until this point for it to really sink in for Egwene that the tower is not a safe place.
Yeah.
Even after talking to Siuan and learning about what the Black Sisters did, it was still abstract for her, you know?
Yeah.
Like, Egwene trusts Aes Sedai. Nynaeve has some built-in suspicion, but Egwene respects Aes Sedai and feels like the tower is home.
She wants to be one.
Yeah. It's not until she is literally almost killed that the words Varen told her when they arrived really sink in. Now the danger really begins.
Yeah. That's it for chapters 14 and 15 of The Dragon Reborn. Join us next week for chapters 16 and 17, where Elaine joins the hunt and the girls have an unwelcome visit from Elida.
I think all visits from Elida are unwelcome.
Right? Yeah.
We hope that you enjoyed this episode of the Wheel of Time Pod-Thru.
We'll see you again next week. Make sure you rate and subscribe to us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. If you could leave us a positive review, it would really help us out. It makes us more visible so more people can find us. You can tweet us at Pod-Thru or email us at whatpodthru@gmail.com and tell us your thoughts on anything we covered today.
That's WOTPODTHRU@gmail.com. Or find our Wheel of Time Pod-Thru channel on YouTube. Like, subscribe, ring the bell, do all the things. Thanks, everybody, and we hope the wheel weaves you in our direction again soon.
Okay.
I don't know. But whatever. Editing Teresa is going to be like, why are you talking about this right now?
It's like, just shut up already, guys. Come on. I got things to do.
Yeah.
Just like Nynaeve.